a boat. How do you make like a rowboat for the stage? Well, here it is. This is an item here that we've borrowed something like this before, but it became one of these items that it was so good that we had to just try and make one for ourselves. This could show up in plays like Peter Pan. For us, we used it in Anne of Green Gables, Letters to Anne in Green Gables by Benji Iniger and Lydia Lonnquist, and I'm sure it's going to show up again and again and again because we've found that rowboats are a great thing to have. So let me walk you through how we made this rowboat. Okay, so here it is, and it doesn't look very big. It's not really very big. It's got one bench for an operator, and we put another little lower bench so if there's a passenger, they can actually sit down there. Actually, we had a little 2x4 that we put right up here in the front too, and somebody could put their butt right on that too if they wanted to. How this started is I had to cut out this shape out of plywood. This looks like an iron. This is plywood right here. It's very difficult to see that it's plywood because we put so much paint on it and we've sanded it pretty good. But out of a sheet of plywood, I cut this shape, the top shape. And if you see, this is the same shape down at the bottom. Another one. Okay, that's the same piece of plywood. So basically, this inside board fit right here against this. And then I just cut it twice. So first I cut out the big piece, looks like an iron. If you look here, this whole thing looks like an iron. And then I cut out from the inside another 3.5 inch, maybe it's 3, I don't have a tape measure with me, 3 inches here and 3 inches here. So it was just a single piece of plywood, and now I had the bottom of the boat and I had the top of the boat. Okay, so imagine that this is a piece of plywood. I just want to be clear here. A plywood comes 4 foot by 8 foot. We use 3/4 inch thick plywood. And on the plywood, I scribed this iron shape 2 times. Okay, so I've got the top and I've got the bottom. The bottom fits perfectly inside the top shape, just like this. And that actually makes a perfectly good boat shape. You want the bottom of the boat to be a little bit smaller than the top of the boat, and this is how it worked out. And so then this all goes away. That's scrap we can use for some other material we can use for some other project. And then this goes away and this goes away. But that's how we got the boat shape. Just used plywood, and one fit right inside the other, just like that. So then the second thing was to connect this piece with this piece, because it's all one piece, right? So this is one piece of plywood, and then this is a second piece. Now I had to connect them with braces, and each of these is the same. Once we had this piece, we just traced all of these pieces, which ended up being just the brace pieces. And we put them all around the boat where we felt like we needed them. This bow piece here, the thing in the front of the boat, might have been a separate shape altogether. I can't remember now. That's what we used to actually create the shape of the side of the boat. So the side is just, here, I'll flip this boat up so you can see it. Okay, so we just cut then for the side of the boat strips of plywood. You could use Luan if they're bent into, or if they're cut into strips, you can easily bend them. And then we just started from the top of the boat and stapled it all the way around to our basically our nailers. So these curved pieces, there's one right here, and then we just stapled to it. You can see where we have our seams and we're stapling things to it. All right, so this top one was the first one that we had to put in. And you can see over here, it ends right here, but we had to end it right on a nailer. So right here, is where we're at. And then we probably had to, as I'm recalling this, we had to maybe cut this because we had to make sure that the top was nice and flush with this plywood piece that we've got here. All right, then after that, we just started building down. We overlapped it much like you do siding on a house. But it made sense to work from the top down because that's how it would be with the boat, because you'd want the water to stay out of it. So we worked with this one first, then we went with this one. We laid this one on top. You see that it overlaps this one. This one overlaps the next. This one overlaps the next. Until at the bottom we just had, you know, a tiny little furring strip really. So we went all the way around the boat just like this with that wood. And then up in the front here, you can see we just sort of had to obey what the wood was doing. So after a while, these pieces of wood, these strips, are going to start curving upwards. They're just going to want to, because if you're trying to curve something, well, it's going to want to go up if you've got a curve in the front. So these, especially you can sort of see it here, after a while, we just started obeying what it wanted to do. We didn't try to like figure out what the math was real on this. We just started, but you want it to make it, you want it to look aesthetically pleasing, and this works. You know, it kind of does. This the curve, there's, for whatever reason, there seems to be more of a curve here than there is up here, and so the wood really does take the curve, and we just sort of use that to our advantage. And then in here you can see, I'm trying to get close into there, you can see that we had to just putty that up. So we put caulk in there, and we put, Sculpture Arts makes a good product called Sculpt or Coat, and we just sort of junked that into that crack so that it didn't look like it had any seams that would take on water. We wanted this to look like an actual real boat. And then in the front, we just put got a cobweb here. Another, just sort of made sort of a piece for the bow here. And that's again just 1/4 inch plywood. Then once we had the boat frame, the thing all framed up, we put a bench. The operator is the one who sits on the bench. He can face either way, but I think it makes much more sense for his legs to be over here. Usually the boat operator is rowing a boat. His back would be to the direction that he's trying to move into. Man, was that hard to say. Anyways, and then in the back too, we've got more of the same. So I'm posting this video because we didn't have any instructions. You know, we had borrowed a boat like this once before. It just sort of became a thing that we really wanted to have, but we couldn't borrow that same boat twice, and so we were doing this kind of just directionless, and so I want people to be able to see how we built our rowboat in case you guys ever want to build a rowboat. This is how we did the back bracing here too. Again, these were mimicked braces, and then we just started putting in braces like that too. So really, it's probably more solid state than it needs to be. Let me show you the oars. These are nothing but canoe paddles, short canoe paddles. You can go online, or you can go to your boating store, I guess, and get these things. These are, you know, just, what do you call them, oar hangers? But for our little boat, I mean, this is a tiny little boat. This is not, you know, it's small. I mean, this whole thing is probably about 8. It had, you know, if I made this whole iron shape out of a 4x8 sheet of plywood, it's shorter than 8 feet, so it's a small little boat. But these little oars, it was easy enough to just go get really short, I guess you'd call them kid-size canoe paddles. And I cut the tops off. Usually they've got that triangle up here, you know, that you kind of grab like this when you're canoeing. And I found that this didn't fit the paddle. Paddle was smaller than what an oar would be. So I had to fatten that up with rope, and then I put staples in it. and I glued it. This whole wad of rope here is all, it's got a lot of Elmer's glue and sculptor coat and other things. It'd be really difficult to undo this right now. It's kind of like if you put epoxy on it or something. So it's not going to fray. And all I needed that for was to thicken this paddle so that I had a way to get this clamp on there. And then, you just start, I sanded it. Paddles are things that usually they have these, depending on who makes them, I guess. I had to sand the logo off of it. I think it like had a feather on there, and so I sanded that off of there. And then I used some spray paint on here just to kind of give it a little bit of texture. In theater, we like texture. And this just goes down the hole like this. And same thing on this side. And so it just makes for, something that you can paddle on stage. And I'll tell you, when things like this come on stage and people see them, audiences, they have two reactions. They either laugh or they ooh and ah. It's something that's a little bit out of the ordinary. It's fun, I think, when a rowboat comes on stage and you see something like this. Audiences get a kick out of it, and then they quickly forget about it, and then they get caught up in the illusion, which is really fantastic. Okay, let me show you the underside quick. Okay, when you're dealing with a boat like this, essentially it's like a Flintstones car. The actor is going to be propelling the boat with their feet, so you have to have a bottomless boat, okay? And that's what this is. When we were first building this, we weren't exactly sure how many wheels it would take, but it's pretty simple. It's just 3 wheels, and they're all spinning casters. We had 2 heavy-duty ones in the back, and then a little bit of a lighter duty one in the front. This boat has been sitting in storage for about 2 years, and so it's got some dust. But this is one of the things that our director really wanted right here. It's sort of like a gasket. All it is landscaping fabric. I don't know if I can focus in on this. Landscaping fabric from our local home store. It's just come on, focus. Really thin stuff that is cheap. And we just stapled that on the bottom. Because with the wheels, your boat is sitting about 3 inches off the ground, and it was sort of distracting if you actually saw the actor's feet pushing the boat across the stage. And this actually created a nice illusion. Once you put this kind of gasket thing, this is the part that touches the floor. We want to make sure that this fabric stays out of the wheel, and you wanted to make sure that this wheel was well away from, it's a spinning wheel, so it has a swing to it. It's got a bigger circumference. We wanted to make sure that that stayed away from the fabric, so the fabric never got in the wheel, and it masked the actor's feet adequately, I thought. Same thing back here. You want to make sure that this clears. This really did make it so that the actor could push the boat around with their feet, and it really, when Anne of Green Gables gets into the boat, you really don't think, oh, she's just standing on the stage floor. No, you actually you kind of get caught up into it. You feel like she's actually in a boat. So ultimately, this is the boat that we made. So anyways, it's just a little dinghy. Here you can actually see, if I go like that, you can see that stamp there, so you can actually see that that's a piece of plywood. We sanded it so much though that it doesn't even really look like plywood anymore. But this is the dinghy. This is our little rowboat. And so if you ever, have a pirate show, maybe you're doing Treasure Island, or you're doing Peter Pan, Captain Hook maybe, and his pirates are showing up in a little rowboat, Anne of Green Gables. There's countless shows that can use a little rowboat like this, and I'm just showing this to you so that if you ever are doing a show like that, here's how we made ours. It really worked well. It seems to be standing up great. This has many shows ahead of it, and so I hope that you guys get some use out of this video. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and if you like this kind of stuff, please give this video a like. And also, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel. This is called It's a Creative Life, and we try to do creative stuff on this channel all the time. So, my name's Pete. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.